I'll tell you the same thing I told all those who came before you. It doesn't exist.
Change to reload time. I noticed the reload on that rifle is slow. This is a Jacobs revolver. I like the Jacobs guns. They've got wooden stocks. Wood is very rare on the planet of Pandora. There's no trees, so it has to be imported.
Borderlands 1 is a game that took the world by storm when it first released back in 2009. The vast amount of guns, the build diversity, the characters, the art style was something we've never seen come out of a first-person shooter before. This, at the time, was the studio's second independent franchise released, the first being Brothers in Arms, and sold a whopping 2 million units by the end of its first year. Hey, that almost reaches Jeff Bezos' weekly pay. Fucking nice, bro, yeah. The game was successful. Everyone was playing Borderlands back in 2009, even Jack Black.
Yo, what's Jablins, Jables? Jack Black here. I am so stoked to announce that we are officially gaming.
How are you, sir? You want to jump in this spot right here?
I don't know what it is.
This is all a dream.
But what if I told you Borderlands wasn't always planned to be what we now know and love?
And was originally a much darker game with a ton of foreign design changes which were cut for better or worse. That's right, fellas, welcome to my Borderlands cut content series. Each video will be covering every single piece of cut content in each Borderlands game until the release of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Knowing my upload schedule, we won't even finish this. Starting with Borderlands 1. Oh my fucking god, where do we even start? Yeah, as you can tell by the length of the video, there is so much to cover here. I think we'll start off light and slowly ascend into the jaw-dropping stuff. We're gonna kick off with cut maps. Ooh. Now, as I said, we're starting off light and there's actually only 3 cut maps which we know of. This map is called Oasis and this loading screen image of it is all we know about the actual location. Real quick, let me just say in case anyone in the slight minority is wondering, this map has nothing to do with a very popular custom modded map for Borderlands 1 which is also called Oasis. If you don't know what the modded Oasis map is, TLDR, it's a hub world for all the DLCs where you can travel to any map you want to visit in a certain expansion. With the Oasis mod, gone are the days where you have to drive wherever you want to go, but anyway, this ain't no sponsor, back to it. As you can probably tell, this loading screen seems to have been made very early on in development. The text uses a completely different font, it's actually the font Dahl uses, and the map takes up the entirety of the loading screen, whereas in the final Borderlands 1 build, the maps are usually in the middle of the loading screen, surrounded by darkness. And also, listen, I know some little fucking genius is gonna point this out in the comments if I don't, so let me just mention that there's a 90% chance this is just early concept art for what was gonna become of the loading screen. It doesn't make sense to have a full render here if the map doesn't end up in the game. I'm not sure if I'm the only one here, but when I saw this for the first time, the map that instantly came to my mind is the Trash Coast, the archive map. Anyone else see that? It's all the plants and colours that just really line up. The next map is the Barren. This was shown off during one of the first gameplay reveals for the game, and it looks like a pretty generic wastelandy area. I think it kinda looks like a mix between the Salt Flats, the Doll Headlands, and the Overlook from Borderlands 2. It also has a pretty big Halo vibe to it, and there is also a concept for a Crazy O themed carnival shared on ArtStation by a lighting artist over at Gearbox. One pretty interesting thing to point out about this location is the Lucky sign above the entrance. I feel like this could have been a bigger introduction to the Zafford clan, maybe? Next up, there's an unused trailer for copyrighted music. Turn it off, turn it off! Listen, I would play the trailer in its entirety with the original music, but bro, I get claimed for 10 seconds of the goddamn Indiana Jones theme song. I sure as hell am not getting copyrighted by Greenfields by the brother for— okay, actually no, that's a classic. I can't even chat shit there. But yeah, honestly, I can understand why this trailer never released. It really doesn't show anything but the environments, and I can't see how this would get someone hyped for the game. One thing worth mentioning here though is that Firestone was originally spelled properly. I don't know why they changed this. The best thing I can think of is Dr. Zed being canonically illiterate. Forget not going to medical school, this guy didn't go to school in general. Alright, let's get into the manufacturer side of things. As we all know, Borderlands 1 had a total of 10 manufacturers. There was Atlas, SNS, Hyperion, Vladolf, Torg, Tedior, Malouan, Jacobs, Dahl, and Iridian. There was also the shield ones, but who cares? But what if I told you there was once another manufacturer which unfortunately got hit by Randy Pitchford's admittedly drippy Ford Mustang called Caraza? What in the Pokemon sounding shit? Now, everything beyond this point is mainly speculation the community has pretty much settled on, as we know absolutely nothing about this manufacturer except its name. I probably should have made this the first category to cover, but hey, we're here now, it's fine. But apparently Caraza is Italian for cuirass, which usually refers to a breastplate. Yeah, I did have to look that up. Hell you gonna do about it? But yeah, because of this, we've just about come to the conclusion that this manufacturer would only make shields. Next up, you fuckers, we're gonna cover a cut vehicle named the Salt Racer. There's actually not much to talk about here, so we'll just briefly skim over it. The vehicle looked like this. It was originally meant to launch with a base game at launch, but obviously for one reason or another, that never happened. However, they did bring it back in a new form in the Nox DLC as the Racer. Seriously, thank God for the Racer though, Jesus Christ. Travelling through the Nox DLC was probably the biggest pain of all time in Borderlands 1. When it comes to the enemies though, it seems as if Borderlands had set designs from the start of the franchise, as there's only one actual cut enemy. Maybe two if you count this model of Crom potentially being a special type of bandit enemy at the beginning. Yo, I know Crom didn't play a huge role in BL1, but it's kind of impressive how they changed him from a casual enemy to a sort of significant figure in such a short time period. But yeah, I have a question. Do you remember Scythids? The enemies that Gearbox forgot existed for some reason? Yeah, those guys had a Chad version of them known as the Super Bad Scythid Warriors. Nothing too special about these guys except the fact that they look nothing like a normal Scythid, and these are just badass versions of them. Booyaka booyaka, let's move on to the weapons of Borderlands 1, the thing that really made the franchise get a name for itself. I think it's pretty well known that grenade launchers were originally supposed to be a weapon type. This was discovered in the game files, and on God, you'd be surprised by how many there are. Why did they not make it into the final cut of the game? Well, guess we'll never know. But what we do know is that they were manufactured by Dahl, Atlas, SNS Munitions, and Jacobs. Kinda strange since none of these guys made any rocket launchers. Some examples of legendary grenade launchers are the Rainmaker. It was made by SNS, and once the main grenade projectile exploded, it released more Merv grenades, similar to Merv Tedior trucks in BL3. There was the Terror, made by Jacobs, which did nothing special, it just had a lot of damage and accuracy. The Onslaught, made by Dahl, which of course fired in a 6-shot burst. Finally, there was the Atlas Leviathan, which shot a slow-moving grenade that dealt a lot of damage and had a huge blast radius at the cost of 4 ammo per shot. I assume grenade launchers would have had their own special type of ammo. And of course, there were grenade launchers that weren't legendary. For example, Nine Toes originally dropped the, and I quote, the big toe, but that ended up getting replaced by the Clipper. And I believe if you play on PC, you can save edit most of these grenade launchers in, which is kinda neat. Just keep in mind they aren't exactly gonna work properly though, for obvious reasons. Finally, for the weapons, we had Iridian Elemental Rifles. No element is confirmed for these bad boys, but it would be kinda cool, and you can't tell me it's not if these were the only things in the game that shot slag. Like, okay, let's think about it real quick. As a concept, it makes sense that the Iridian weapons fire slag, a debuff element. Just seems kinda cool on paper, to be honest. But yeah, nah, I'm sure it would have just been your typical BL1 elements, and hey, let's not stress over losing these things too much, because Did anyone actually use Iridium weapons? Alright, now, it just wouldn't be a proper Borderlands 1 cut content video if we didn't talk about the art style change. How did it go from looking like a generic ass Fallout looking game to this drippy cartoony masterpiece? Well actually, side note, the Fallout analogy I used is actually true because one of the game's biggest complaints testers had back in 2008 was that it looked too much like Fallout 3. This was a big problem for Gearbox, and keep in mind this was only a year away from launch as well. The game was around 75% of the way done at this stage, and there was a big worry about what they could and could not do because of financial and time reasons. So the answer was left in one Gearbox employee's hands, and after days and days of brainstorming ideas, he just went, oh, fuck it, comic book looks cool. Like, I'm not even joking, this is genuinely what happened. So yeah, they had enough time and they just let developers do their magic. Next up, Gamer Gamers, we're gonna talk about asset flips and changes with character models. That's right, boys, your girl Lilith wasn't always as hot as she is now.
Lava's rising! Get to high ground!
Though people actually found her hot with her old model, peep this bullshittery.
Ooh, nice body. Who is this chick? The hell is she wearing? Yeah!
Lilith originally had two different designs prior to what we have now. Her first design, the one which people complimented her. Oh. Fuck the lava that's rising, it's my blood sugar levels that are rising. Her first design looks slightly familiar with a few differences and a very similar backstory. During this day, Lilith was called Dr. Lilith Cashlin, and as you can tell, this is before the cel-shaded era for Borderlands began. This design obviously got revamped and adjusted by just a tiny bit before being handed to Dr. Patricia Tannis. Later on, Lilith got the design of Commodore Steel, and I think this would have been a much cooler design for her, to be honest. It definitely fits the mage appeal more. This was also during the pre-cel shaded era, and if you're wondering what Steel looked like at this stage, the answer is she probably wasn't in the game. Well, she was, in a sense, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to story. It's a very different element of Steel. Next up, we have Mordecai. Again, very similar backstory, very similar design too. I really like how they kept the luchador concept from the start, and if you prefer this Mordecai look, then don't worry because this model is actually still in the game. It's just Reva who has it now. And Roland is probably the character who had the biggest makeover. His character now looks completely different and they originally gave him a white skin tone. Like pretty much every other model on this list, the OG Roland can still be found in game in the form of Dr. Zed. They did obviously make some minor adjustments in order to remove the soldier-like appearance though. And finally, we have Crom taking the skin of the special bandit character we mentioned earlier. No, Crypto. What about Brick? Oh right, Brick. Yeah, of course. Well, he wasn't added into the game until very late into the game's production cycle. I assume Gearbox were literally forced to add him into the game later because 2K wanted some 4-player split screen. And yeah. That's it. Moving on to gameplay. Oh yeah, baby. There's a lot. A lot. The video's already long enough, so we're just gonna speed run through this section like a goddamn CinemaSins video. During vehicle combat, you could lock onto enemy cars if you were the driver. Old UI. It looks incredibly basic. Your characters would appear in the cutscenes more often. I think they only did this in the final cutscene of the final game. Come on, Borderlands 3 man, you're slacking. The quick change stations were called skill distribute systems. You respect and spec into skills here. You couldn't spec elsewhere, so using a skill point seems like it would have been a tedious process. Skills were categorized under 5 Why am I doing this voice, man? Skills were categorized under 5 sections, which had a different name for every Vault Hunter. Roland's were called Physique, Roland Focus, Firepower, Gear, and I don't know. The weird thing here, and this could be the biggest gameplay change we've ever had, is the fact you didn't have a large varied skill tree you could spread your points across. You could only select one skill in each category and you'd have to switch them out depending on what you wanted to do. I assume the skills leveled up the more you used them, sort of like the game's weapon proficiency system. Wow though, if Borderlands stuck with this kind of system, So many people would have just never touched the game. It's definitely a huge L compared to what we have now. Imagine the fucking BL3 DLC if we stuck with this. Introducing extra skill tree category for only $15. Make sure to pick your one choice wisely because we have 4 strong selections. Skills are just increased accuracy whilst moving, increased accuracy whilst crouching, increased accuracy while sliding, increased accuracy. Alright. Finally, onto the story section. This might be the biggest but smallest section at the same time because we really don't have much to go off of except a few voice lines from a very small section of the story, but believe it or not, it reveals quite a lot. Now, it was very difficult for me to actually use the audio to make any sort of theories because everything sounds extremely different compared to what we have now, and everyone seems to have different theories on this. So I'll just share some of my takes, but before we get into the key elements, I just want to point out some pretty interesting things.
Weather alert. Static storms expected tonight. Weather curfew will be in effect for 20 hours tonight. Curfew will begin at 93 o'clock.
Sounds like Pandora was originally really going to be a foreign planet with a very different time metric system, but it looks like that concept had been scrapped. This is disproven by Moze's watch in BL3. The time on Pandora just goes nowhere near as high. Next up, we have Alpha Skags. Yeah, they seem to have been way more interesting than just enemies with a larger health bar. Check this out.
If you get lucky and you manage to kill a Skag Alpha, do yourself a favor. Leave the Pearl Stone. Every Skag in 10 miles will smell it. They can smell them through time and across dimensions. They'll hunt it down and kill anything to get it. So don't get tempted. Leave the thing in the dust.
Yes, I understand I'm really reaching with this one and it's probably just a story thing, but listen, today's my day to be philosophical, okay? Leave me alone. Also, in Borderlands 2, we learned that this is how Helena Pierce got half of her face peeled off.
How about this? Lady, I don't even know what to call you. You tell me why you look like you headbutted a belt sander, and I'll let all you go right now.
My husband gave me a Skag pearl ring. The pearl released hunger-inducing pheromones.
I refuse to believe that's the true story. I'm sure he knew and he just decided to pull some sort of epic gamer prank on her. Or he had an affair on her with Tannis and gave this to her because he knew it'll kill her. I don't know. Ooh, that's actually a good plot point, you know? Next up, we have yet another cool gameplay feature told to us through story dialogue. Here, it seems like NPCs reacted differently through dialogue depending on which class you're playing. This later on became a thing in the pre-sequel.
You did what paid, Goggles. Hey, Slick. How's it going? What's up, Muscles?
Mordecai is Goggles, Brick is Muscles, and Roland is Slick. Yeah. Definitely on about the old Roland here. Yeah, I couldn't find any mention of Lilith except her being called Pretty Lady 87 fucking times in a row, so I think it's safe to assume that was her nickname. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Moving forward with the list is something really interesting actually. It looks as if Sanctuary was originally supposed to be in the game as potentially another big vibing hub world area, whatever you want to call it, alongside New Haven.
I was there when the Sandstalker took Leo. He was just walking toward us past the doorway, and then suddenly he was just gone. I just grabbed and pulled him into the cutting storm. Never saw him again. Just like all the others. Bedtime for me. Red shift, you know. Sanctuary out. And this is Sanctuary. It's been 4 days. Give it a rest. Yeah, it's me. Our fearless leader is asleep. Yeah, I got tired of the red shift. I was missing the sunsets. Look, whatever happened at Waterfront, it's more than just a malfunction. They aren't going to answer. Sure, but we're too far. You're stuck in the flats, and New Haven is a bit thin on manpower. No offense, New Haven, if you're listening. I'll bet. Sounds good to me. Sanctuary out.
I'm curious now. I wonder if Sanctuary from Borderlands 2 was influenced by the one which was originally in BL1 by Anyway. There seems to have been a pretty big emphasis on sandstorms and hazards across the planet in the original game.
Weather alert. Static storms expected tonight. Weather curfew will be in effect for 20 hours tonight. Medical notice. Currently, we monitor no biological hazards. Range, safety clear.
I just heard on the radio that they're having another sandstorm over at Asylum. You ever heard of the Sandstalker? It lives in the sandstorms. No one knows what it looks like. No one knows where it hides when the storms are gone. All anyone knows is when the sandstorms come, if they wander too near the edge of shelter, it reaches in and snatches them. then nobody ever sees them again.
Don't quote me on this, but it sounds like these would have affected gameplay too, and that's super fucking cool. Borderlands 1 is a perfect wasteland environment, and I can totally imagine running away from storms and bandits at the same time. It also seems as if skags and raks were originally very foreign to us in the original game.
At first, we noticed them in the distance, just flying past. Some creature we'd never seen before. We assumed they were migrating. Every day there are more. Every day they get closer. Closer and more aggressive. They'll kill you if you wander too far from the settlement, but we're mostly safe from them here. Over time, they've come to respect our guns. There's something new out there, but now they're showing up in larger groups, 4 or 5 at a time. Now the skags. The skags are nasty scavenging pack animals. They're all over this region. These things aren't migrating. They're moving in. Somewhere nearby, these things, these rak, must have a nest or a hive. We need your team to find it.
I really like this since it really makes the first game feel like it's more about Pandora. I like the emphasis on the planet being a major danger in the game. It's something we really don't have in the Borderlands we know. We just kind of get out of Marcus's van and go with the flow. I actually prefer this sort of narrative. Yo, I shit you not, like 97% of the audio files are about the goddamn rak hive, man. It's so annoying. You know what? Feel my pain, here.
I found the hive. We were wrong. We were so wrong. Sea charges. That won't be enough. You wasted your time. It's coming.
I have the sea charges. Where is the hive?
Sea charges. That won't be enough.
Where is the hive?
Jake, you mean the hive.
Listen, you hear that? It's coming. It's coming.
Jake, I have the sea charges. Where is it? Where's the hive? Jake, what happened? Jake, damn it, where's the hive?
See what I mean? But then again, it's another example of a planet being a bigger danger with us needing to use explosives to take it down. My guess is this was changed in order to fit the RPG elements of the game more. Farming the rak hive would probably have been impossible since to kill him you'd need story items. Kinda glad they made that choice if that's the case. And finally, Steel. Yes, I haven't forgotten. When I say she was kind of in the game but very different, this right here is what I mean. Try to notice at least one difference from this audio.
Off to the west, in the old alien ruins, we have Steel and his so-called brigadiers. They still have the vehicles they stole from us, and they wear the clothes of our dead. But they aren't strong enough to attack us anymore. We aren't strong enough to take them out either.
Straight away from the top of my head, I see that A, she was a guy, fuck, maybe she still is, maybe it's just his siren abilities turning him into a woman. And B, he's a bandit leader. Very big difference from our Commandant Steel, and if anything, I think it's only the name that remains in the final game. But what happened to the original Commandant Steel? Are they gone forever, or are they...
Sledge.
The Sledge. How do I know this? Well, there's one simple clue that just makes it obvious.
Kill Steel. Without him, the rest won't last. I'll give you 200. And you can keep his damn shotgun.
Oh, I'm very serious, Mr. Steele. I suggest you stand aside. Thank you, Mr. Steele. It even matches my boots.
Yeah, the shotgun. A nice, fancy shotgun the game gave us actual story dialogue for. It's definitely Sledge, come on now. And finally, for the final piece of cut content in Borderlands 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna stick to news with Commandant Steel, as there was a whole cut act that would have delved into her character more and made her, an actual villain.
It's Steel, right? Yeah, Steel is ostensibly the villain.
Yeah, I made an attempt there. The problem was, when I finally put that story together, it was so late in the process that not everybody was embracing everything. And, I'm kind of a soft leader. Like, I'm not going to force stuff if people aren't going to buy it. And I should have. I should have forced more of the team to just, look, we need the villain to come through. Otherwise, it's...
You forget that we lost an entire act.
Yeah,
that's not a third act from the game.
There was a whole another section of the first game.
And she was going to be there a lot more. So
literally the biggest complaint about Borderlands 1 is that the main villain was never there, and to think that this problem could have been avoided if they just stuck to their original plans is crazy. We could have potentially even figured out what her siren powers were. Like, man, this is such a bummer. But yeah. That's it. There's our ultimate Minecraft Redstone tutorial guidebook on cut content for Borderlands 1. Part 1 out of 5? Finito. This video took a lot of time and effort to make, so leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button would really mean a lot. As a bonus, once you hit both of those, the chances of you getting a girlfriend increase, so yeah, you're welcome. I hope you assholes have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay classy. Adios.